My daughter left me with my 3 grandkids. 13 years later, she accused me of kidnapping. I'm Auntie Jasmine, a 52-year-old black woman who raised 3 children that weren't even mine for 13 years. Then their mother, my own daughter, walked back into their lives and tried to have me arrested for kidnapping. By the time I was done with her, she'd lost custody permanently, faced criminal charges herself, and learned that you don't bite the hand that raised your babies when you were too busy chasing men and drugs to do it yourself. Let me be clear about something from the start. I didn't ask for this life. I didn't wake up one morning at 40 years old thinking, you know what? I want to start over with 3 kids under 5. But when your daughter shows up on your doorstep at 2 in the morning with a black eye, a drug habit, and 3 scared babies, you do what you have to do. That's what family does. That's what I thought anyway. I should have known better. I'm Auntie Jasmine. Everyone in the neighborhood knows me, respects me. I've been around long enough to recognize a user when I see one. But this was my daughter, my baby, and those were my grandbabies. I was sitting at my kitchen table when the police knocked on my door that Tuesday morning. The same kitchen table where I'd fed those kids breakfast every single day for 13 years. The same table where we'd done homework, played board games, celebrated birthdays. My hands were wrapped around my coffee cup, the one that said "World's Best Grandma" that little Maya had given me for Mother's Day 3 years ago. The old clock on the wall was ticking. It was 7:47 a.m. I remember because I just sent the kids off to school. Jaden was 16 now, about to get his driver's license. Maya was 14, honor roll student. Little Marcus was 12, not so little anymore, playing middle school basketball. When I opened that door and saw 2 officers standing there with grim expressions, my blood ran cold. "Mrs. Jasmine Walker?" the taller officer asked. "That's me," I said, my voice steady even though my heart was hammering. "What's this about?" "We need you to come down to the station. There's been an accusation made against you regarding 3 minors in your care." The room started spinning. "Excuse me. Jaden, Maya, and Marcus Walker. Their mother has filed a report claiming you've been unlawfully keeping them from her. She's alleging kidnapping and parental alienation." I had been such a fool. My daughter Keisha had been gone for 13 years, and now she wanted to show up with accusations. The audacity was breathtaking. "Officers," I said, my voice shaking now despite my best efforts, "those children have lived with me since they were babies. Their mother abandoned them. I have documentation. Ma'am, you'll need to explain everything at the station. We're not arresting you at this time, but we do need you to come answer some questions." I grabbed my purse with trembling hands. My throat felt tight. I thought about Jaden, Maya, and Marcus at school, not knowing their world was about to be turned upside down. Again. As I sat in the back of the police car, not in handcuffs, thank God, but still in the back like a criminal, I thought about how we'd gotten here. I remembered when Keisha was born. I was 32, married to James for 10 years, finally pregnant after years of trying. She came into this world screaming her lungs out, a beautiful baby girl with a head full of curly black hair and eyes that looked right into your soul. I held her in that hospital room and promised her I'd always protect her, always love her, always be there. I remembered her first day of school, how she cried and clung to my leg until I promised to wait right there by the fence. I stood there for 20 minutes after she went inside, just to make sure she was okay. I remembered when she made the cheerleading squad in high school, how proud she was in that uniform. How I'd gone to every game, every competition, cheering louder than any other parent. I remembered her graduation, how beautiful she looked in her cap and gown, her whole future ahead of her. She was going to community college to study nursing. She was going to make something of herself. Then she met Damon. Everything changed after Damon. She dropped out of college her first semester, started coming home late, then not at all. I'd find her clothes scattered in her room, money missing from my purse. James and I tried to talk to her, tried to help, but she was grown by then, 19, 20, 21. We couldn't force her to listen. By 22, she was pregnant with Jaden. I remember the day she told me. She was 5 months along, hadn't been to a doctor yet, living God knows where with Damon and his friends. She showed up needing money, needing help, needing her mama. I took her back in. I thought the baby would change her, you know? I thought becoming a mother would wake her up. Jaden was born in November, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, perfect in every way. Keisha held him in the hospital and cried. "I'm going to be a good mama," she promised. I'm going to do better. For 3 months, she tried. She really did. She stayed home, took care of Jaden, seemed like she was finally growing up. Then Damon showed up again. She left on a Tuesday. Jaden was 3 months old. I came home from work to find him screaming in his crib, unchanged, unfed for hours. There was a note on the kitchen counter. I need to figure myself out. Please watch him. I'll be back soon. Soon turned into 3 years. By then, she'd had Maya with some other man whose name I never learned. She showed up pregnant, gave birth, stayed for 6 months, then disappeared again. Marcus came 2 years later. Same pattern. She'd show up pregnant or with a baby, stay until she got restless, then vanish. Sometimes for months, sometimes for years. Each time, I thought she'd come back different. Each time, I was wrong. The last time I saw Keisha before this nightmare started was when Marcus was 6 months old. She'd been staying with me, supposedly clean, supposedly trying. Then one morning she was gone. No note this time, just gone. That was 13 years ago. She'd be 35 now. In those 13 years, I'd gotten exactly 3 phone calls from her. One when Jaden was 7, drunk, calling to tell me she loved me. One when Maya was 9, needing money. I'd said no. And one 3 years ago from a hospital in Atlanta where she'd overdosed but survived. She'd hung up when I'd asked if she was coming home. How did we get here? How did I go from raising my own child to raising her children? But I'd done it. I'd enrolled them in school, taken them to doctor's appointments, helped with homework, attended parent-teacher conferences, coached basketball, hemmed dance recital costumes, saved for college funds. James had helped until he passed from a heart attack 5 years ago. After that, it was just me and the kids, and we were happy. Despite everything, we were happy. The kids called me grandma, but I was their mother in every way that mattered. They knew about Keisha. I'd never lied to them about their mother, but I was the one who was there. Now it all felt like a lie. At the police station, I sat in a small, sterile room and told my story to a detective who looked like she'd heard it all before. Detective Martinez, her nameplate said. She was maybe 40 with kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor. Mrs. Walker, tell me in your own words what's been going on, she said. I told her everything. About Keisha's addiction, her absences, the children being left with me, about raising them alone after my husband died, about school records, medical records, everything in my name because I was the one who'd been there. Do you have any documentation? Detective Martinez asked. At home, I said. 13 years of documentation, school enrollment forms signed by me as guardian, medical consent forms, everything. What about legal custody? Did you ever formalize the arrangement? And there it was, the mistake that was about to ruin everything. No, I admitted, my voice small. Keisha would always say she was coming back. I thought I was just helping temporarily. It just kept being temporary for 13 years. Detective Martinez nodded, her expression sympathetic but grave. That's going to be a problem. Legally, your daughter still has parental rights if she's claiming you've kept the children from her. She abandoned them. I couldn't help the anger in my voice. She left them for years at a time. I believe you, Mrs. Walker, but we need to prove it. Where's your daughter now? I have no idea. I haven't seen her in 13 years. She's staying at the Comfort Inn on Route 9, Detective Martinez said. She came in this morning with a lawyer, claiming she's been trying to contact the children for years, but that you've prevented all communication. She says she's been clean for 2 years and wants her kids back. And if you don't comply, she's pushing for kidnapping charges. The irony was devastating. I'd saved her children, raised them, loved them, and now I was facing criminal charges. That night, after being released pending investigation, I sat in my living room long after the kids had gone to bed. I'd explained to them what was happening, that their mother was back, that there were legal issues, that everything would be okay. Jaden had gone silent. Maya had cried. Marcus, who barely remembered Keisha, had asked if he had to leave. Over my dead body, I'd promised him, but I didn't know if I could keep that promise. My phone rang at 10 p.m. It was my sister, Patricia. Jasmine, I heard what happened. Mrs. Chen from church told me. Baby, are you okay? No, I said honestly. Hat, I don't know what to do. You need a lawyer, a good one, and you need to document everything. When did she leave them? What condition were they in? Every single thing you remember. I don't have that kind of money, Auntie Jasmine, Patricia interrupted, using the name she'd called me since our nieces and nephews started calling me that years ago. This isn't about money. This is about those babies. You call Marcus Lee, you remember him. He went to law school, practices family law now. He goes to New Hope Baptist. I'll call him tonight and tell him what's happening. I remembered Marcus Lee. Sweet kid, now probably 35, had grown up in our neighborhood. His mother had been in my book club before she passed. I can't afford to let him tell you what he can do. Just call him. Promise me. I promised. The next morning, I sat across from Marcus Lee in his small office downtown. He'd agreed to see me immediately, and when I walked in, he stood and hugged me. "Mrs. Walker, Auntie Jasmine," he said warmly. "I've heard so much about what you did for those kids. My mama used to talk about you all the time, said you were one of the good ones." I fought back tears. I might lose them. Not if I have anything to say about it. Now tell me everything. And I mean everything. Every phone call, every absence, every time she left those kids. Every birthday she missed, every Christmas, all of it. For 3 hours I talked. Marcus took notes, asked questions, his expression growing grimmer with each detail. "Here's the situation," he said finally. "Legally, your daughter still has parental rights. You never got legal guardianship, which was a mistake but an understandable one. However, we have something called de facto custodian status in this state. You've been the primary caregiver for more than 6 months in this case, 13 years. That matters. Can she really have me arrested? She can try. But kidnapping requires intent to permanently deprive a parent of their child. You didn't kidnap them, she left them. But we need to prove that. We need evidence of abandonment. I have some things at home. Get everything. Old calendars, journals, letters, emails, text messages, anything that shows she wasn't present. Medical records showing you were the one taking them to appointments. School records. Church records if they were baptized and she wasn't there. Every single thing. I spent the next week gathering evidence. It was easier than I'd thought because I'd kept everything. I'm a teacher, organization is my specialty. I had a filing cabinet full of 13 years of documentation. Every school form, every medical record, every birthday card I'd sent to the kids that Keisha hadn't. I had my old calendars where I'd noted every time she'd called or visited. In 13 years, there were exactly 17 entries. 17 times in 13 years. I had photographs, birthday parties where Keisha wasn't there, school plays, sports games, graduations, holidays, hundreds of photos of me with the kids, and Keisha was in maybe 5 of them total, all from when the kids were babies. I had neighbors who'd witnessed the children living with me for years, teachers who'd only ever dealt with me, the kids' pediatrician who'd only ever seen me at appointments. Marcus Lee compiled it all into a thick binder. Then he did something I didn't expect. "We need to find out what your daughter's been doing for 13 years, he said. "I'm going to hire a private investigator. My guy is good, he'll find out where she's been, what she's been doing. If she's got arrests, evictions, anything that shows she wasn't capable of caring for the children." "I can't afford Mrs. Walker, Auntie Jasmine," he said gently. "My fee is whatever you can afford. My mama raised me to help people who need it. You need it. Those kids need it. We're going to fight this." I cried right there in his office. For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt a glimmer of hope. The private investigator's name was Donald Chen. He was Mrs. Chen's son from church. It seemed like the whole neighborhood was rallying around me. He was a former cop, now running his own investigation business, and he had resources I couldn't even imagine. 2 weeks later, he walked into Marcus's office with a file that made my stomach turn. "I found her," Donald said. "Or rather, I found her trail. It's not pretty." Over the next hour, he laid out Keisha's 13-year journey. After leaving my house, she'd gone to Atlanta with a boyfriend, arrested twice for drug possession, evicted from 3 apartments, worked sporadically, mostly cash jobs that didn't require background checks, moved to Charlotte, then Jacksonville, then back to Atlanta, more arrests, a stint in rehab that lasted 3 weeks, another stint that lasted 2 months. Then a year ago, she'd met someone, a man named Trevor Wright who ran a nonprofit for former addicts. They'd gotten involved, and according to Donald's sources, Trevor had gotten her clean. She'd been working at his nonprofit, living in a sober house, attending meetings. "So she has been clean," I said slowly. "For about 14 months, Donald confirmed. But here's the interesting part. She only started asking about the kids 6 weeks ago." "What changed?" Marcus asked. Donald pulled out another document. Trevor Wright recently received a significant grant to expand his nonprofit, $250,000. He's been interviewed in local papers, presented as this success story. And in one of those interviews, he mentioned his girlfriend Keisha and her tragic separation from her children due to family circumstances. The article painted you as the villain keeping a reformed mother from her kids. That son of a... I stopped myself. So this is about image. Partially, Donald said. But there's more. I found out Trevor's applying for another grant, a bigger one, $500,000 from a national foundation. Part of his application is about reunifying families using Keisha's story as a centerpiece. If he can show that he helped a mother get clean and reunite with her children she was wrongfully separated from, it makes for a compelling narrative. The pieces clicked into place. She doesn't really want them back. She wants the story. I think she wants both, Donald said. From what I can tell, she believes her own narrative now. She's convinced herself that you somehow stole her children, that she was prevented from being a mother. The boyfriend is reinforcing that. They've built this whole story where she's the victim. Marcus leaned back in his chair. That's going to make this harder. She's not going to back down easily. She believes she's the good guy. Can we use this? I asked. Can we show what she's really doing? Absolutely, Marcus said. But we need to be strategic. If we come out swinging with all this information, it'll look like we're attacking a woman who's trying to turn her life around. We need to pick our moment carefully. The moment came 3 weeks later. Child Protective Services had opened an investigation. A social worker named Jennifer Mills came to my house, interviewed the kids, looked at their rooms, checked the refrigerator, asked a million questions. She was professional but thorough, and I could tell she was trying to figure out what the truth was. Jaden, bless him, was the one who really made the difference. He was 16, old enough to speak for himself, and he did. My mother left when I was 3 months old, he told Ms. Mills, his voice steady and mature beyond his years. My grandma, I call her Grandma, but she's Auntie Jasmine to everyone else. She's the one who raised us. She's the one who taught me to ride a bike, helped me with homework, came to my basketball games. When my mom calls saying she wants us back, it's like a stranger claiming she deserves us just because of biology. We don't want to leave. This is our home. Maya echoed his sentiments, tears streaming down her face. Auntie Jasmine is our mom. A real mom left us. Even Marcus, at 12, understood enough to say he wanted to stay with Grandma. Ms. Mills's report recommended that the children remain in my care. It wasn't a final decision, but it was something. The court date was set for 6 weeks out. Temporary custody would remain with me, but Keisha was granted supervised visitation once a week. Those visits were torture. Keisha would show up at the family services building with Trevor, both of them dressed nicely, bringing gifts for the kids. She'd cry and hug them and apologize. Mommy's so sorry. Mommy was sick, but she's better now. Mommy wants you to come home. But the kids were stiff in her arms. They didn't know her. Jaden was polite but distant. Maya tried to be nice but would come home crying. Marcus was confused and scared. After the 3rd visit, Jaden came home angry. She kept saying you kept us from her, he said, pacing in the living room. That you turned us against her. Grandma, that's not true, right? Of course not, baby, I said. I've never said a bad word about your mother to you. You know that. I know, I told her that. I told her you always said she loved us but was sick and couldn't take care of us. But she didn't want to hear it. She just kept saying you poisoned us against her. The narrative was solidifying. In Keisha's mind, I was the villain, and she was going to court to tell that story. I could have confronted her privately. I could have called her, met with her, tried to reason with her. But Marcus Lee had a different idea. Let her think she's winning, he said during one of our strategy sessions. Let her get comfortable. Let her believe her story. Because when we present the truth in court, backed by 13 years of evidence, it's going to hit that much harder. What if the judge believes her? I asked. The judge is going to believe the evidence, and we have all of it. She has a story, we have facts. But I couldn't just sit and wait. Every day felt like torture, wondering if I was going to lose the kids I'd raised. I started having nightmares about police coming to take them away, about Jaden, Maya, and Marcus crying as they were dragged out of the house. I lost weight. I couldn't sleep. I'd go into their rooms at night just to watch them sleep, memorizing their faces in case I lost them. Patricia came over one evening and found me crying at the kitchen table. Auntie Jasmine, she said softly, sitting beside me and taking my hand. You're going to make yourself sick. What if I lose them? I whispered. Pat, what if I lose my babies? You won't. God didn't bring you all this way to let you fall now. You've got the truth on your side, and the truth always wins. I wanted to believe her, but I'd been around long enough to know that the truth doesn't always win. Sometimes the person with the better story wins. And Keisha had a very compelling story, Reformed addict seeks reunion with stolen children. The day before court, Marcus came to my house with a plan. Tomorrow is going to be hard, he said. Keisha's lawyer is going to paint a picture of a woman who made mistakes but has turned her life around. They're going to say you took advantage of her vulnerability, that you convinced her to let you temporarily care for the children and then refused to return them. They're going to make it sound like you're the one who kept them apart. How do we fight that? With the truth, but more than that, with witnesses. I've subpoenaed everyone who can speak to the children's well-being under your care and Keisha's absence. Teachers, neighbors, doctors, church members, and I've got Donald's investigation report ready. We're not going to let them paint you as the villain. What about the kids? Jaden will testify if needed. He's 16, old enough for his opinion to carry weight, but I'm going to try to keep all of them out of it if possible. They've been through enough. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything that could go wrong. Thinking about how Keisha might actually win, might actually get the kids taken from me after 13 years. At 3 a.m., I got up and went to the living room. I pulled out old photo albums and sat on the couch, looking at pictures of Jaden, Maya, and Marcus growing up. Their first days of school, lost teeth, Halloween costumes, Christmas mornings, birthday parties, all the moments Keisha had missed. I thought about the day Jaden learned to ride a bike, how he'd pedaled down the sidewalk shouting, "Look, Grandma, I'm doing it." I thought about Maya's dance recitals, how beautiful she looked in her costumes, how she'd search the audience for my face. I thought about Marcus's basketball games, how he'd look at me on the bench and give me a thumbs up before every game started. These were my children, not by birth but by every other measure that mattered. I'd earned the right to be their mother. Keisha had given birth to them, but I'd raised them. If she wanted war, she would have war. The courthouse was exactly as cold and impersonal as I'd expected. Marcus met me outside, carrying 2 briefcases full of evidence. "You ready?" he asked. "As ready as I'll ever be." We walked into the courtroom together. Keisha was already there with her lawyer, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit. Trevor sat in the gallery behind them, supportive boyfriend playing his role. When Keisha saw me, her expression hardened. "All rise," the bailiff called. The Honorable Judge Patricia Morrison presiding. Judge Morrison was a black woman in her 60s, with silver hair and an expression that suggested she'd heard every lie and excuse in the book. I felt a tiny bit of hope. Maybe she'd see through Keisha's story. "This is a hearing regarding custody of 3 minor children," Judge Morrison began. "Jaden Walker, age 16, Maya Walker, age 14, and Marcus Walker, age 12. Currently residing with their grandmother, Jasmine Walker. Their biological mother, Keisha Walker, is petitioning for return of custody. Let's begin." Keisha's lawyer stood. "Your Honor, my client is a woman who has overcome tremendous obstacles. She struggled with addiction, yes. She made mistakes, yes. But for the past 14 months, she has been clean and sober. She's employed in a stable relationship and desperately wants to reunite with her children. Children who were taken from her during her darkest moments and held by her mother, who has refused all attempts at contact." The lies were breathtaking. I felt Marcus's hand on my arm, steadying me. "Ms. Walker has been attending therapy, participating in a structured recovery program, and has demonstrated remarkable progress. She's prepared to provide a stable, loving home for her children." Meanwhile, Mrs. Jasmine Walker has refused to acknowledge Ms. Walker's recovery and continues to alienate the children from their mother. It was a good story. I could see some people in the gallery nodding sympathetically. Then it was Marcus's turn. "Your Honor, Mrs. Jasmine Walker is not a villain. She's a hero. 13 years ago, her daughter, the petitioner, abandoned 3 children, the youngest only 6 months old. Mrs. Walker didn't take these children. She was left with them. No note, no call, no support. Just 3 babies who needed someone to care for them." Marcus opened his first briefcase. "I have here 13 years of documentation. School enrollment forms, medical records, permission slips, all signed by Mrs. Walker as the primary caregiver. Not because she stole these children, but because their mother was nowhere to be found." He pulled out a thick binder. "This is a calendar documenting every interaction Mrs. Walker had with her daughter over 13 years. 17 total contacts. 17 times in 13 years. Some were phone calls asking for money. Some were drunk dials. None resulted in the petitioner trying to take custody of her children." Keisha's lawyer objected. Your Honor, my client was dealing with addiction. She wasn't capable, exactly, Marcus interrupted. She wasn't capable, which is why Mrs. Walker stepped in. She didn't steal these children. She saved them. The hearing went on for hours. Witnesses testified. Mrs. Chen from church talked about seeing me raise the kids, attending their school events, bringing them to Sunday school every week. The kids' pediatrician testified that in 13 years, Keisha had never brought the children to an appointment or even called to check on their health. Teachers talked about me attending parent-teacher conferences, volunteering in classrooms, making sure homework was done. Then Donald Chen took the stand. I'm a private investigator, he said. I was hired to determine Ms. Keisha Walker's whereabouts and activities over the past 13 years. He laid it all out, the arrests, the evictions, the multiple rehab attempts that failed, the years of complete absence from her children's lives. And when did Ms. Walker first attempt to contact her children? Marcus asked. 6 weeks ago. After her boyfriend's nonprofit received significant grant funding, and after a newspaper article was published about his work reunifying families. So for 12 years and 10 months, there's no record of her attempting to contact her children or their grandmother. That's correct. Keisha was crying now, and Trevor looked furious. Her lawyer tried to minimize the damage, talking about how addiction is a disease, how Keisha shouldn't be punished for her lowest moments. But then Marcus played his final card. Your Honor, I'd like to call Jaden Walker to the stand. I hadn't known he was going to do this. Jaden stood from where he'd been sitting in the gallery with his siblings. At 16, he looked older than his years, tall and composed. Jaden, how long have you lived with your grandmother? Marcus asked. My whole life, since I was 3 months old. And in that time, how many times have you seen your mother? Maybe 5 times that I can remember. The last time was when I was 7. Do you want to live with your mother? Jaden looked at Keisha. She was staring at him with tears streaming down her face, and for a moment I saw something human in her expression. Hope, maybe, or fear. No, Jaden said quietly. I don't know her, she's a stranger to me. My grandma, Auntie Jasmine, to everyone who knows her, she's my mom. She raised me. She's the one who was there for everything. I understand my mother was sick, and I'm glad she's better now. But she can't just show up after 13 years and expect us to go with her. We have a life, we have a home, and it's with Grandma. The courtroom was silent. Keisha was sobbing openly now. Trevor had his arm around her, whispering something in her ear. Thank you, Jaden, Marcus said gently. No further questions. Keisha's lawyer didn't even try to cross-examine. What could she say? Judge Morrison called a recess. We sat in a waiting room for what felt like hours. Marcus was confident, but I couldn't shake the fear that somehow, despite everything, I might still lose. When we were called back, Judge Morrison's expression was stern. I've heard testimony from both sides, she began, and I've reviewed the extensive evidence provided. This is a case that, on the surface, seems to pit a woman's past against her future. But that's not what's actually at stake here. She looked directly at Keisha. Ms. Walker, I want to be very clear with you. I believe you've made progress in your recovery, and I commend you for that. Addiction is a terrible disease, and overcoming it is no small feat. However, this case is not about whether you've changed. It's about what's in the best interest of 3 children who have been through enough instability in their lives. Keisha was nodding, hopeful. Mrs. Jasmine Walker did not kidnap these children. She did not alienate them from you. You left them. For 13 years, you made no sustained effort to be part of their lives. You didn't send birthday cards or Christmas presents. You didn't call on their birthdays. You didn't ask about school or friends or sports or anything else. For 13 years, you were absent, and Mrs. Walker filled that absence with love, stability, and devotion. Judge Morrison picked up the binder Marcus had submitted. This evidence is overwhelming. Mrs. Walker has been these children's de facto parent for 13 years. She has provided them with a stable home, met all their needs, and by all accounts, raised them to be healthy, well-adjusted young people. Jaden is about to start looking at colleges. Maya is an honor student. Marcus is thriving in middle school. These are not children who have been harmed by their grandmother's care. They have flourished. She set the binder down and looked at Keisha again. I understand you want to rebuild a relationship with your children, and I'm not going to prevent that, but I am going to ensure that it happens in a way that protects these children's well-being and honors the woman who has been their mother in every way that matters. My heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. Therefore, I am granting Mrs. Jasmine Walker full legal custody of Jaden, Maya, and Marcus Walker. This custody is permanent and cannot be challenged without showing a significant change in circumstances and evidence of harm to the children under Mrs. Walker's care. Relief flooded through me. Marcus squeezed my hand. Ms. Keisha Walker, you will be granted visitation rights. Initially, these visits will remain supervised, twice a month for 2 hours each. After 6 months, if these visits go well and you remain stable, we can revisit the arrangement. However, these children are not required to live with you or call you mother if they don't choose to. They are old enough to make those decisions for themselves. Keisha stood up, her voice breaking. Your Honor, please. Ms. Walker, I'm not finished. I'm also referring this case to the district attorney's office for review of your allegations of kidnapping. Making false accusations against someone who cared for your children is a serious matter. If they find that your allegations were knowingly false, you could face criminal charges for filing a false police report. The color drained from Keisha's face. Trevor was pulling at her arm, trying to get her to sit down. Furthermore, Judge Morrison continued, her voice hard now, I'm ordering a full investigation into Mr. Trevor Wright's nonprofit. If I find that this entire situation was engineered to create a compelling story for grant applications, there will be consequences. Federal grant fraud is a serious crime. Trevor stood up. Your Honor, that's completely— Sit down, Mr. Wright. I'll hear from you when and if the investigation warrants it. Judge Morrison looked at me and her expression softened. Mrs. Walker, you have done an extraordinary thing. You stepped up when your daughter couldn't and you gave 3 children a stable, loving home. This court recognizes and honors that sacrifice. These children are lucky to have you. I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. 13 years of fear, worry, and love all came pouring out. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. I sat there crying while Marcus hugged me and people from the gallery, neighbors, church members, the kids' teachers, came up to congratulate me. Jaden, Maya, and Marcus ran to me, and we all stood there holding each other, crying and laughing. Across the courtroom, Keisha was still sobbing. Trevor was on his phone, probably calling his lawyer. Her lawyer was packing up her briefcase with tight, angry movements. As I walked out with my grandchildren, my children, I caught Keisha's eye. For just a moment, I saw past the anger and the tears to something else. Shame, maybe, or regret, but it was too late for regret. She'd made her choices 13 years ago, and she'd kept making them every day after that. Come on, babies, I said to Jaden, Maya, and Marcus. Let's go home. The investigation into Trevor's nonprofit took 3 months. It turned out Donald Chen had been right. Trevor had built his entire grant application around Keisha's story of fighting to reunite with children wrongfully kept from her. The National Foundation withdrew their $500,000 grant offer. 2 other grants were suspended pending investigation. The nonprofit didn't shut down completely, but Trevor resigned in disgrace. The district attorney did press charges against Keisha for filing a false police report. She took a plea deal that included probation and community service. No jail time, but a criminal record. The supervised visitation continued for a while. Keisha would show up, try to connect with the kids, but the damage was done. Jaden was polite but distant. Maya tried for a few months before giving up. Marcus stopped asking to go. After a year, Keisha's visits became sporadic. Then they stopped altogether. I heard through Patricia that she'd moved to another state, started over somewhere else. Part of me hoped she'd finally found peace. Part of me didn't care anymore. Life returned to normal. Jaden graduated high school with honors and got a scholarship to State University. He's studying engineering now, comes home on weekends, still calls me every night before bed. Maya's talking about becoming a lawyer. Marcus Lee has been her inspiration. Marcus is in high school now, playing varsity basketball, still my baby even though he towers over me. I'm 55 now. My hair's gone gray, and my knees ache when it rains, but I've never been happier. The house that used to feel too quiet after James died is full of life again. Teenage drama, college applications, basketball practice, dance recitals, all the beautiful chaos of raising kids. Patricia still calls me Auntie Jasmine, and so does half the neighborhood. It's become my name more than Jasmine or Mrs. Walker ever was. I'm Auntie Jasmine, the woman who raised 3 kids who weren't hers by birth but were hers by choice. Sometimes I think about that morning when the police knocked on my door. How terrified I was that I'd lose everything. how Keisha had come back with her accusations and her new life and her audacity. Looking back now, I realize the whole thing was inevitable. People who have never taken responsibility for their actions don't start just because time has passed. Keisha convinced herself she was the victim because that was easier than accepting that she'd abandoned her children. Trevor saw an opportunity to exploit her story for his own benefit. They both underestimated the power of documentation, witnesses, and 13 years of consistent, devoted care. The irony was, if Keisha had come back humbly, acknowledging her past and asking to slowly rebuild a relationship with her kids, things might have been different. Not custody, she'd lost that right years ago, but a relationship at least. Instead, she came back with accusations and lawyers and lies. She thought she could rewrite history, erase 13 years of abandonment with 14 months of sobriety and a good story. She was wrong. Some say I was too harsh, that I should have been more forgiving, that everyone deserves a second chance. Maybe they're right, but I wasn't protecting myself. I was protecting 3 children who'd already been abandoned once. They deserved stability, security, and someone who wouldn't leave when things got hard. I gave them that. I gave them a home where they knew they were loved, where they could count on someone being there for school plays and basketball games and broken hearts and bad days. That's what being a parent means. Not biology, not second chances, not compelling stories for grant applications. Being there, every single day, that's what matters, and that's what I did. These days, when people ask about my grandkids, I correct them gently. They're my kids, I say, because that's the truth. They're mine in every way that counts, legally now as well as practically. Judge Morrison made sure of that. The children know about their mother, about what happened in court. We don't hide it from them, but we also don't dwell on it. Keisha is part of their story, but she's not the main character. I am. Not because I tried to be, but because I was willing to be there when no one else was. That's the lesson I want to pass on to them and to anyone who might hear this story. Family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who loves you enough to sacrifice their own plans and dreams to make sure you have a chance at yours. I sacrificed a lot over those 13 years. The freedom to travel that I'd planned for my 50s. The quiet house I'd imagined after raising my own child. The ability to be spontaneous or selfish or reckless with my time. I gave all that up to raise 3 kids I hadn't planned on raising, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Because sitting here now, listening to Maya practice her debate speech in her room and Marcus argue with Jaden about basketball stats on the phone, I know I made the right choice. This is my life. These are my children. This is my family. Keisha showed up 13 years too late and tried to rewrite the story. But the story was already written, in school records and doctors' notes and photo albums and memories. You can't gaslight the truth when the evidence is that overwhelming. She forgot one thing: I was there. I was there for every moment she missed. I was the one who wiped away tears and celebrated victories and enforced bedtimes and made sure homework got done. I was the one who showed up. And the judge knew it. The law knew it. Most importantly, the kids knew it. That's what saved us in the end. Not my lawyer's skills, though Marcus Lee was excellent. Not the private investigator's report, though that helped. What saved us was 13 years of showing up, of being present, of being the parent these children needed. You can't fake that. You can't manufacture it. You can't show up after 13 years with a reformed image and expect to erase more than a decade of absence. Keisha learned that lesson the hard way. I hope wherever she is now, she's found peace with her choices. I hope she's genuinely changed and not just performing change for someone else's benefit. I hope she's happy. But mostly, I hope she understands why she lost. Not because I'm cruel or unforgiving, but because protecting these children was more important than anyone's redemption story. They deserved better than a mother who abandoned them and then tried to pretend it never happened. They deserved better than being used as pawns in someone's grant application. They deserved stability and love and someone who would fight for them. They got all of that from me. I'm not perfect, no parent is, but I was there. Every single day for 13 years, and I'll be there for the rest of my life. That's what being Auntie Jasmine means. Not just a name, but a promise. A promise to show up, to stay, to love fiercely and protect relentlessly. I kept that promise, and I won.